Good morning, listeners. My name is Patrick Shannigant, and you are listening to Ornithology Weekly on CDC Radio One. The latest bird news, facts, and findings every Saturday at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Now, before you listen, there's something I'd like you to hear. That, of course, was the call of the American Coot. I often travel to exotic places to study birds that I can't find at home, but the American Coot is very common in almost every part of North America. Some people can be irked by the loud, scratchy call of this seabird, but I think they're pretty coot. The American Coot's scientific name is Fulica americana, and it lives primarily near or on the water. They are medium-sized birds with dark blue feathers and a distinctive red dot on the upper part of their beak. They are aggressive birds and will fight fiercely over territory. I found myself fighting like a coot just last year when a rich oaf decided to move to Salt Spring Island. I won't use his name, let's call him Randy. Randy spent the better part of his youth working in the Alberta oil sands and decided he would like to retire on Salt Spring Island and enjoy the very nature he'd been actively destroying his whole life. Well, I could have ignored Randy, but he drove an enormous truck that spewed black smoke and roared louder than a whole flock of ravens. He made life unbearable for us. It became impossible for us to rehearse our didgeridoo choir. So one day I stormed over, summoned my inner American Coot, and knocked on Randy's front door. There was no answer. All I could hear was the sound of a hockey game blaring in his living room. I knocked again. Finally, he came to the door. I politely asked him to go the speed limit in this neighborhood. He laughed in my face. I told him to be respectful, and he told me he was going to drop his gloves and square off if I didn't leave. So I did leave, but not before noticing that his new front fence was in violation of our bylaws. One of our didgeridoo choir members is a retired Crown prosecutor, and let's just say, not only is Randy's fence illegal, but it also turns out Randy has been cheating on his taxes. Poor Randy had to sell his property and retreat back to the bowels of Alberta forever. May only the largest coots excrete their droppings on your truck, Randy. The American Coot forages for food around water and will even dive beneath the surface in search of tasty morsels. But when that doesn't work, the coot will even steal food from the smaller, gentler birds and ducks. Sometimes when I visit the pond near my home and I see an American coot bullying my duck friends, I will scream at the top of my lungs to get them to stop, but they never do. Nature is harsh and unforgiving. To court females, the American coot will display the white patches that are on their tail. If the female is sufficiently impressed by these markings, she will mate with the male, and they will make a floating nest out of foliage. The American Coot will mate twice a year. My guest this week has just finished writing a book on the American Coot and is a lecturer at the University of Victoria and the University of British Columbia. She also happens to be my neighbor. It's so nice to welcome Dr. Evelyn Crabtree back to the studio. Thanks for being here, Doctor.
No, thanks for having me, Patrick.
What made you want to write about the American Coot? I love birds, but this one can be quite nasty.
Yes, the American Coot can be a real grump, but only when defending territory. We can all relate to that. Remember...
I was just talking about him. I don't want to reveal his name, but yes, he was a plague upon this island. I'm glad we are rid of him.
Remember how he used to drive his ATV right at the cows to scare them?
He was definitely drunk.
Anyway, the coot is a fierce bird that stands up for itself, and I admire that.
They can be mean to the ducks, though, sometimes, with no provocation. The other day, I was down at the beach looking for driftwood to carve, and I saw a pair of American coots charge a family of long-tailed ducks.
Oh, those are rare around here.
Yes, and they won't be back soon.
Well, that's nature, isn't it? No need to overreact. A few days ago, I heard somebody shrieking at the duck pond, telling off the coots, and I couldn't stop laughing.
What was it like to study the coot?
Oh, it was very convenient because there are so many here in the Gulf Islands. I was able to record most of my observations from home. My grad students stayed in my guest house while we observed mating behavior. It was great to return from the field every day in my own home and enjoy some eelgrass salad.
Delicious. Working from home is a blessing.
This island is a blessing.
Did you learn anything new about the coot's behavior?
Of course. That's why I wrote a book. I don't want to give too much away before the book is released, but one thing I discovered is that the American coot always achieves flight by running toward the sun, not toward the wind.
Oh my, this changes everything.
It certainly does, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more.
Well, if that doesn't sell you on her book, I don't know what will. Dr. Evelyn Crabtree's new book, Old Coot, The American Coot, will be available at the UVic and UBC bookstores this summer. Thank you for speaking with me today, Doctor.
Always a pleasure.
Well, that's it for the show. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, happy Bird Day.